Hello everyone, today I decided to do a reaction video and I'm going to react to Ikenna's video, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, and the video is called Why It's Impossible to Learn a Language in School. By the way, I will not show the entire video, I will watch all of it, but I will probably only put some of it, some extracts of it. If you want to watch the entire video, I recommend that you just go to his channel. I will put links in the description box below as usual. So, I'm not sure what to expect. I haven't watched the video, as you can imagine, that's the point, but I'm kind of eager to find out what he thinks about language education. I am myself a teacher in real life and I have experience in working with teenagers, adults, you know, sort of different ages. So we'll see if what he has to say actually reflects reality. I am expecting him to exaggerate a little bit because I think that's sort of his sense of humor on his channel, but let's just start, I guess, and let's find out.
So, let's get into it. You have struggled in middle school, college, or in especially high school with languages. Well, the thing is, you are not alone. I mean, even for me, due to the fact that I can speak 6 languages and that I'm working towards my 7th, people see me and they're like, oh, this dude, you know, he's got a language brain, he's got a special talent for languages, whatever. No, I don't.
I do agree with him, and I'm glad he made that point, that it doesn't take a sort of predisposition in your brain, in my opinion, to be good at languages. Often it comes down to the amount of work you put in into, you know, learning that language or even any skill at all.
Anyways, so what is the reason that I feel everyone and their ancestors has had a difficult time trying to learn a language in school? Studies show that less than 1% of American adults today are proficient in a foreign language that they studied in a US classroom. That's noteworthy considering that in 2008, almost all high schools in the country, 93%, offered foreign languages according to a national survey.
I just wanted to say something, so I'm not sure what he's going to say next, but it's very important not to just take a quotation from a linguistics article, I presume, as truth, because it's very, very important, and actually that's a video I will probably make soon, is that in linguistics you can't take anything as the truth, not possible. A real linguist will never just say, oh, this is the truth and that's it. No, like every sort of point or theory you have in language learning can always be discussed and debunked and sort of corrected and improved, etc. So just because it says that, it doesn't mean that this is this is a fact or that is to be taken at face value, because we don't know the context. It could be that these people, you know, in the survey, again, I don't know, but it could be that the people in the survey decided to do languages for 5 years or 7, I don't know, and that they stopped practicing the language, therefore they're not fluent in the language anymore. It could be also that people have different sort of definitions of fluency. It could be lots of reasons, and I really would have to read the paper to sort of know what it's about. But let's carry on.
So that clearly begs the question, what is wrong with America? If I'm actually going to be honest, this is not just an American problem, okay? This is a worldwide epidemic. I mean, language education around the world is just, what's another word for crap? I mean, for example, take a look at this beautiful chart. This is from a study of 1,001 British students from the ages of 14 to 24 about the results of studying languages in schools.
Let me just read the data. Okay, so this is basically a chart which compiles people's attitudes towards their own level, which is quite common in linguistics. I personally use that kind of sort of self-description, self-judgment. So yeah, that does have its value. Again, each methodology will have its limitation, but why not? Let's keep watching.
As you can see, after years of language learning in school, the vast majority felt no sense of progression and felt like what they've learned is limited to the basics. Some couldn't understand anything at all. Why is it like this? Here's what I think. Schools, in particular high schools, are so fundamentally backwards that they're essentially setting you up not to be fluent in whatever language you're studying. They're setting you up not to be able to speak, not to be able to listen, but to be a grammar master. For example, for me, in my middle and high school, under the New York State curriculum, this is how we were taught Spanish. We walk into Spanish class the first day, we're excited, and all of a sudden, grammar. Okay? Verb conjugations. Oh, by the way, test.
I just wanted to pause there. So for grammar, and it does have a point. I mean, it depends on the language, I guess, but I can talk about probably French more easily because this is the main language I teach. But languages like French, and I think Spanish is kind of the same, but to a lesser extent maybe. I think it's a bit simpler, grammatically speaking. But for French, it's very important to learn the grammar. For speaking, it definitely is, like it's very important, but even more for writing. It is impossible to write proper French without no knowledge of grammar. And it's not just because of spelling mistakes, but it really is because you won't be able to convey a message properly. So it is important. That is not to say that a language lesson should be only a grammar lesson. Also, speaking of that, I think it's also a traditional thing as well. So now teaching has evolved. So now language tends to be more communicative. There's still emphasis on grammar, but not as much as before. There's more speaking involved. Well, in the best cases, I can't overgeneralize. But I guess in America that would be the same because the research is there to support that. Only doing grammar is not really helpful in the long run in terms of getting fluent in the language. But something else I wanted to say is that some of the studies will look at people that were in school maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, not all, but some of them. So it is important to take into account that what happened 10 or 15 years ago is not the same as what's happening now, nowadays, with people, with teachers trained differently, with more modern methods and more research, more up-to-date research. And I think it's important to take this into account when you are sort of judging language classes based on studies.
Learning grammar and learning vocabulary is too damn hard. And to be honest, of course it is. Of course it is. It is not fun at all.
And I disagree. I think there definitely is a way to make grammar fun. It would be a bit long to sort of explain now, but when I'm teaching, I definitely can make students laugh. One of the strategies I guess I use is just my attitude, the way I behave. I don't make mistakes sound like a big deal. I just laugh. Or maybe if they make a mistake, I kind of try to explain to them what that would sound like. And sometimes the results are quite funny. So there's a way to make grammar sort of like fun, really. Obviously, I'm not saying you should always do grammar, but it's not true that grammar is not fun. You can make it fun if you use the right strategies.
You know what would have been fun instead? Listening practice, watching a movie and writing down vocab from it. Maybe, I don't know, speaking skills, speaking practice. You see, the only speaking practice we ever had came in the form of a one-on-one, final destination, battle conversation with the teacher, and she would grade you based on how well she thought you spoke. See, a test like this is very good at one thing, making you stress out and cram study and try to ace this test, this oral exam, so you don't embarrass yourself.
I do agree with this criticism of exams, and that's a thing really amongst teachers. Like, a lot of teachers don't like exams, not just because it's work, but also because it's quite standardized and it doesn't always reflect real life conversations. Now, having said that, the exams I do with my students at the moment in secondary education, they try as much as possible, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but they try as much as possible to make the exams more sort of real life. For example, my students learn to discuss lots of different topics regarding science, family, politics, immigration, that kind of thing, which are, I think, quite sort of current things to talk about.
And studying in general for things you really don't want to do is never effective because you end up forgetting everything you learned the second you're done with the test.
I agree. It's definitely true. If you train your students to revise only for one exam, that they will just cram as much as possible into their poor heads and then forget about it, afterwards. But I think it's a matter, and I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a matter as well of training students to revise regularly. And also, just because you have an exam, I mean, in my case, just because my students have exams, that doesn't mean that I can't encourage them to go on Netflix, read books in the target language, watch documentaries on YouTube, videos, whatever. They can still do that as well. But the thing that I find most often to be the case is that students will only focus on the exam, I'm not blaming them, but they won't try to work on their French beyond the homework and the exam. I think it's important to encourage students to play with the language, enjoy it as much as possible within what they can do.
Then eventually, after enough years, the teacher starts speaking only in the language that she's teaching. And this is never good because, well, we've received virtually no listening and speaking practice. Meaning, a lot of students aren't going to understand the hell she's talking about. And when people can't keep up and they feel like it's not working for them, or that they suck at it, or that learning is a chore, they become very anti-learning. Then they give up. And even if they're still required to take the class, they do the minimum amount of work possible to get a passing grade, and mentally they check out.
I think something interesting, I know I'm saying the word interesting a lot, but the only thing I find unfair about this criticism of language classrooms, and it's not even because I teach in a classroom, but it's to say that one method on its own doesn't work. No method on its own will ever work. I mean, I'm yet to see one simple method which teaches you to be proficient 100% and be perfect. I mean, not perfect, but to be proficient in a language. If you use only a textbook, you're not going to be proficient, it's going to fail. If you use only an app, it's going to fail. Language teaching based learning, it's going to fail. Everything will fail if you don't sort of supplement one sort of resource or method, if you will, with something else to make sure that all the sort of weaknesses of each method is sort of countered by the strengths of another one. And I think that's really important to have this variety when you're learning languages.
Anyway, so in my school, we had the option of picking from Italian, French, Chinese, or Spanish. If you wanted to study a language that was outside of there, well, tough luck, kid. You want to study Swedish? No, our school doesn't have the resources for that.
I agree. I think it's a shame that schools don't offer more languages. Often the choice you have is going to be Spanish, French, and German, maybe sometimes Italian if you're lucky. Chinese, in England anyway, is starting to sort of be a thing, but I don't think it's there yet, which is surprising because there are so many speakers of Chinese. But yeah, I think it's obviously a financial, money thing, really, which I definitely agree is a shame, but that's how it is, I guess.
Even if you're very passionate about a language, it's still a challenging endeavor to learn a language to fluency. Because it's passion, it's access to the best language learning programs possible, it is discipline, it is consistency, it is genuine interest in a language, and it's having fun while learning that will determine whether you're successful at learning another language.
I agree with everything except from the fun aspect. I think languages should mostly be fun, for sure. If it's never fun, then you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to give up. Like, that's kind of normal. But sometimes language learning can't be fun. Like, there are things that you do in language learning which are necessary, which you're not necessarily going to enjoy. And it depends on the people. For example, I don't massively enjoy learning vocab, but I know that I still need to do it, and I do it, and it helps me. So the fun is in the sort of result of that non-fun moment, if I may say. So, the fact that I'm learning vocab and it's sort of annoying me will be fun later when I'm able to use it. But I don't agree that if it's not fun, then you're doing it wrong. That's not true at all. I don't believe that.
Unfortunately, most schools don't encourage or support any of those things because it's often no passion, learning through outdated textbooks and methods.
I, again, disagree with something. But that's a kind of a classic one. People usually talk about language classrooms as the old-fashioned way, but as I said at the beginning of the video, I believe, language classes have moved from that. They are more modern. Not saying it's perfect, not at all, but it's much different than what it used to be. And I don't believe that you can't be fluent after a language class. You can definitely find a lot of people that will tell you that they learned nothing from their class, but I don't think we should take these as proofs, like absolute proofs that language learning in classrooms doesn't work. So yeah, I would just recommend to be a bit critical about what he just said, but that's fair enough. That's his opinion. He's entitled to it. But again, something else, I wouldn't say that there's no passion. There is passion. Like, there are teachers like me that when I do my lesson, like, all students will laugh at least 10 times during the lesson because I just love it. I'm just so interested about the grammar, linguistics, and I think I've got the kind of knowledge that interests also students in terms of slang as well, which they always like. I'm quite open-minded as well, so I'm not gonna avoid, you know, using swear words if it's for educational purposes. I'm not saying I swear in class, I do not, but if there's a phrase that comes up, then I'm happy to translate and to sort of discuss it. And I think they like that because I've got passion. So language teachers can definitely have passion when they're teaching.
What happens if you are studying a language in college or in high school and you are very passionate about it? Then what you want to do is you want to supplement your classes with watching TV, watching movies, watching YouTubers, and you also want to use programs like Asumo or Anki.
Exactly, that's what I was trying to say earlier, is that a language classroom, a language course on its own will not be enough. That's not possible, and that's something that I always tell my students. And in fact, I teach them to learn. You know, I give them ideas of apps they can use, ways they can use to remember the vocab, learn the vocab. But yeah, it's very important to supplement your language course with something else on top of your, classes. So that was my reaction to Ikenna's video. I thought it was an interesting video, even though there's a lot of things I criticized in my reactions. I think what was a shame is that his view on language learning was a little bit dated, I think, old-fashioned. I can't blame him, but I'm glad I did this reaction video because it's quite nice to sort of let people know that language learning in classroom has really evolved and it's quite different from what it was before. As I said multiple times in this video, it's not perfect, but there's definitely good things, reasons for you, for why you might want to go in a language classroom. For example, you will have a teacher which will be able to really explain to you the language in detail, hopefully someone that is, that knows the subject well and will really be able to help you and understands all the intricacies of learning a language, and also that probably experienced learning another language as well. So I think that's all I wanted to say in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out Ikenna's video. I will put it in the description box below. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Obviously, don't subscribe if you didn't like it. And I will see you next week. Bye.